Among the many things that make Japan unique, one statistic stands out more than most. Despite being one of the world's most populous nations, Japan is the only country with an almost 0% homelessness rate, while the United States faces a growing crisis, with more and more people living on the streets each year. Japan appears to have found the answer to a problem many thought had no real solution. But when you look beyond the headlines, the picture starts to change. Beneath this seemingly impressive achievement lies a far more unsettling truth about life within Japanese society and what's really happening behind closed doors. So how did Japan achieve a near-zero homelessness rate? And why might that actually be bad news for the country? This is the dark secret behind how Japan solved homelessness. Part 1. The official explanation. Japan, with over 125 million citizens, reports only about 3,000 homeless individuals. That's just 0.003% of the populations, significantly lower than other countries with strong social safety nets, like Switzerland, and far ahead of countries like the United States. Why? There are a few commonly cited reasons for this strikingly low number. First, being homeless in Japan is extremely difficult and it's heavily stigmatized. According to the founder of a non-profit organization supporting Japan's homeless community, there is little to no culture of compassion toward people without housing. They are often seen as entirely responsible for their own misfortune, and many believe they don't deserve help. This harsh reality is even more striking when you realize that the majority of Japan's homeless population are men. In Japanese culture, men are traditionally expected to be self-reliant providers, so when they can't live up to that role, both society and the individuals themselves often see it as a deep personal failure. This stigma means that being homeless in Japan isn't just hard, it's nearly impossible. Authorities have taken steps that effectively criminalized visible homelessness. Begging in public is outlawed, and in major cities like Tokyo, officials have implemented what many call anti-homeless or hostile architecture, like locking public parks at night so no one can sleep there, or designing benches with harsh dividers and awkward shapes to prevent anyone from lying down or staying too long. This combination of legal barriers and cultural shame makes homelessness not just difficult, but something most people will go to extreme lengths to avoid. At the same time, some of Japan's policies, though not created to solve homelessness, have played a part in keeping the numbers low. For instance, Japan has some of the strictest drug laws in the developed world. Almost all drugs aside from alcohol are banned, with very harsh penalties. Because of this, only about 1.6% of Japanese people have ever used illegal drugs, compared to around 46% of Americans. Drug addiction, which often contributes to homelessness in other countries, is almost non-existent in Japan. Another key factor is healthcare. Japan has a strong, accessible healthcare system. That's crucial because in the US, between 30 to 35% of homeless people struggle with untreated mental illness. In contrast, people in Japan with severe mental health issues are often placed in institutions, not left to survive on the streets. Japan also has relatively accessible housing. Unlike many Western countries where strict regulations and zoning laws make it hard to build, Japan has taken the opposite approach. The government allows rapid and flexible development, which keeps housing supply high and costs lower. All of this sounds impressive, and on the surface, it looks like Japan has genuinely solved homelessness. But in reality, the picture is much darker. Despite the government's low official numbers, the truth is far more grim. There are many more people without stable homes in Japan. They're just hidden from public view and excluded from official statistics. So how is this possible? To understand that, we need to look back at Japan's economic crash in the 1990s. After the collapse of the stock market and real estate bubble, it became incredibly difficult for many people to find stable, well-paying jobs. Millions ended up stuck in temporary, low-wage work, and many never recovered. This group came to be known as Japan's lost generation. People who were left behind by the system, with no career, no security, and no future, as their incomes remained unstable. Many couldn't afford to rent a proper apartment even in a country with relatively cheap housing. But because of the intense stigma around homelessness in Japan, they avoided living on the streets at all costs. Instead, a new phenomenon emerged: the cyber homeless. Across Japan, 24-hour internet and manga cafés offer small booths where customers can stay for hours or overnight. These cafés, originally meant for entertainment, gradually evolved into makeshift shelters. Since the late 1990s, thousands from the lost generation began sleeping in these cramped cubicles. Over time, The cafés started offering food, showers, clean underwear, and drinks, essentially becoming commercial homeless shelters. But with one major catch: you have to pay to use them, and they're not cheap. A night in one of these booths can cost anywhere from $17 to $28. The people who sleep there, often called net cafe refugees, usually have part-time or gig jobs. They work, they keep themselves clean, and they do everything they can to blend in and avoid the shame of being labeled homeless. But they are homeless. They have no stable housing, no permanent address, and they're excluded from many parts of everyday life. They may not sleep on the streets, but their situation is just as insecure. That's why many believe Japan's official homelessness statistics are vastly underreported. NGOs estimate that the actual number of people sleeping rough is at least 3 times higher than the government claims. And that doesn't even include the cyber homeless. If those people were counted, the numbers would be far different. In fact, by 2020, it was estimated that in Tokyo alone, around 15,000 people were living in internet cafes, 5 times the number of officially reported homeless in the entire country. The official number of homeless people in all of Japan remains shockingly low. And in some ways, the rise of cyber homelessness might seem like a positive development. After all, these net cafe residents aren't sleeping on sidewalks. They're staying off the streets. They maintain some sense of privacy, some dignity, if they don't have a home to call their own. But at the same time, their existence reveals something far more troubling: deep structural problems within Japanese society. A staggering 1/3 of Japan's entire workforce, over 22 million people, are stuck in part-time or temporary jobs, not by choice, but because they simply can't land stable, full-time employment. Not all of them are homeless, but many earn little more than minimum wage. They struggle to afford rent, and even worse, they see no clear path toward a better life. So while Japan may boast a lower official homelessness rate than the United States, the percentage of people living in poverty is actually higher in Japan. Very few end up on the streets, but many more are pushed to the margins of society. They end up in capsule hotels, cheap rentals, or crammed into internet cafes. It's a cruel cycle. Without a proper address, it's almost impossible to get a steady job. But without a job, they can't afford an address. And because of the intense social stigma around homelessness, most of these people choose to remain invisible. Society, in turn, is more than happy to ignore them. A problem you don't see is a problem that's easy to pretend doesn't exist. The government can continue to promote its nearly 0% homelessness rate. But beneath that polished surface lies a hidden crisis, a symbol of everything that's gone wrong with the Japanese economy. And as time passes, one thing is clear: the number of Japan's invisible homeless isn't shrinking. It's only growing.